So spaying and neutering is crucial in, one, controlling population, but also changing the trajectory of pets' lives.
Education of owners is really important no matter what you're talking about, but specifically whenever it comes to spaying and neutering.
We can often flat out prevent or at least severely reduce the risk of certain diseases when we spay or neuter pets.
When they go through a heat cycle, it makes the uterus a really welcome environment for bacteria because it's trying to welcome some puppies or kittens. But that also leaves it open to bacteria, and then that becomes a medical emergency where we have to go to emergency surgery. And this is one of the things where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and that you're going to save a lot of money spaying and neutering early versus trying to do a medical emergency surgery later in life.
So it's super important to do that at an early age, so we help prevent those conditions from even developing.
It decreases the likelihood of them to develop aggression. Some dogs will be aggressive regardless of whether or not you spay them or neuter them, but particularly in male dogs, it can decrease that.
In my clinical experience with intact females, those tend to be almost the most aggressive sometimes because they have that motherhood kind of progesterone hormone going on that they want to be protective, particularly over their owners.
But from the demographic that we serve, typically that involves access to care, so the actual physical ability of being able to get your animal in to be spayed and neutered, and also just education on why it's important from a health standpoint. You can't just come at it from a point of accusing people of having an issue with the way they're treating their animals. You have to come at it from their side where you approach them with understanding.
Here at AVS in particular, we start that conversation as early as possible.
And I also think about it from, not only the standpoint of having your pet spayed or neutered, but also the work that not doing that puts on like shelter staff. If you're having to go in and euthanize a bunch of healthy animals because there's just no room and no one to care for all these animals, that's emotionally draining and hard on those people.
If we cannot help an animal through medicine or surgery, then we are responsible for at least easing their suffering.
This problem could be almost avoided entirely if we just had education out for people that said, spay, neuter your pets and dogs.
Unless someone is sitting there encouraging them, telling them about the dangers of being intact or the concerns of being an intact animal, they're not feeling the urge to get their animal fixed.
And I think people become a little fearful of, well, I like the way things are now. Is that gonna change anything? And it won't. If anything, it makes them a little more focused on the family. Hey, I'm just excited that you and the kids are coming home, and whatever else it is, I'm not so worried about what the girls next door are doing, things like that.
We try to advocate for our community as much as possible.
If they had spent $100 or $200 when they were 6 months old, we could have prevented this crisis when they're 10 years old.
Spread the word. That's the purpose of this whole video, is to spread the word and educate the public.
Sharing posts on social media, we all know the power of social media these days.
But it takes no money to be an advocate for an organization.
I think anybody who wants a pet should have a pet, because most people who want a pet, they just want that companionship.
Getting people thinking about the decisions they make now and how that will affect them and the pets involved throughout the years is key.
I'm proud of the way we treat people, honestly. Looking at our numbers from 2017 until now, the 3 years leading up to COVID, we were at about a 7,500 on average intake. The 3 years immediately following COVID, we're at about a 9,300 steady volume of intake. So we've seen about 2,000 additional more animals each year, but we have not seen that many more adoptions. Our adoption numbers are, for the most part, stagnant.
I think adopting animals is great.
Educate and adopt. Why spend $5,000 on a puppy with an unknown vaccine history, bred in a backyard, when you could go get a dog for basically $0, already spayed, neutered, microchipped, vaccinated, clean bill of health, where they're doing specials all the time at shelters all across the nation to help get animals out of the shelter and into loving homes.
So if you focus on ways to decrease the population, that is what's going to help with all of that. So none of us like to make those euthanasia decisions. That's not what we got in this profession to do. We care an enormously amount to to help these animals and that kind of thing. So
it's almost like they know that you saved them in a way. I find they're just so grateful. And I think it's very cliche to say, you know, who saved who, but it's really true because, you know, they do make really great pets.
We assume positive intent. We assume the best of people. We're open adoption. We try to eliminate as many barriers as possible for anybody who wants a pet.